Hey, foul players, the season starts this weekend. So you know what we got to do today, right? Yep, time to get the decoys out.
You're watching the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Alright, here we are in the crawl space, which is what I also call decoy storage. And I got a mess. I got some decoys here, decoys over there, some car parts here, some car parts over there. That's my big sled. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I got to get all this crap cleaned out of here and start pulling decoys out, get them cleaned up, get them ready for the season coming up this weekend. So I'll talk a little bit about how I'm going to set up for the season, particularly helpful maybe for any new guys that are watching along they go into a Bass Pro Shops or a Cabelas and look at hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of decoys and are confused about what they need, or they watch some of these other YouTube videos where these guys put out like 10 dozen decoys. So don't need it for what I'm doing. You probably don't need it for what you're doing either, but we'll talk about it as I get some of this junk in the garage. There she is. Alright, here's what we got for the decoys that I'm planning on using this weekend. So, how I like to set up, I like these 12 slot bags, kind of nice for a situation where I don't have to carry them in long distances. You saw in that first clip, I have a couple sleds, and I will be using those for sure this weekend. If I had to walk in, I'd use some type of a backpack style. But I like this, it keeps them a little more neat and organized. Brand, I've got a couple different brands. It's unimportant in my opinion. This one's I guess this one's a 3x4. I've got some that are 2x6. I like 3x4 better. It's just it's more compact. So how do I like to set up? So we're in a small hole off a small creek. We're not really in major flyway zone, and it's predominantly wood ducks. So what I have in here is going to be half a dozen wood ducks that I all have on one big carabiner, so I can pull out all together. And pull it off. Probably something that is familiar to everyone is the old Texas rig. That looks like a 3-footer that I've got this on. Water's not even going to be knee deep, so this is more than enough. I love the Texas rig. If you haven't seen these before, I suspect you have. So, I mean, if you got a weight on one end, this loop on the other, here it goes through a large swivel. So you can reach it when it's in the water. You can reach down, you can pick the decoy up, you can grab the loop, boom, clip it on your carabiner, and move on to the next one, as opposed to wrapping it around the keel or wrapping it around the weight. Definitely the way to go in my opinion. If you're in depths, you need line less than 4 feet. I tried to make some 6-foot Texas rigs once. That was a mess. It was just a big, huge snarl. So maybe if I had some really, really heavy monofilament that was really stiff, or maybe some of those that are a cable, plastic coated cable, would have worked. Didn't work for me. So I have half a dozen woodies that I'll stick out there. Then what I have in here, and these are for what it's worth. That's an Avian X decoy, and that is a Cabelas branded decoy. Not much difference there. I think I chose the Cabelas the last time because they looked just as good as the Avian X. and maybe a little cheaper. There's another Cabelas decoy. The rest of these are all Cabelas. But I have 4 drakes and 2 woodies, or 2 hens, I'm sorry. I just want that color to pop as they're flying over so that they're a little more visible. Then in here as well, I have 4 mallards that I will throw out just because. And these are, again, Avian X. These are the flocked headed ones, which so far I've had these 4 seasons. That one's been shot. So far, they're holding up well. I'm pretty happy with these, and they look good. This flocked head, these are a little more expensive, but when this flocked head, when the sunlight hits it, it really does look nice. So I've got. I'm gonna pull these out. I've got 1 upright drake, 1 kind of casual female, 1 feeding female, where the bill will sit down in the water, and then 1 resting drake. Maybe he's preening, maybe he's not resting, whatever. These guys are a little dirty. I'm going to take them over to the sink here in a minute and just scrub them down, get them clean, get them ready to go. And then the last thing I have is I have a couple of these fully flocked Avian X black ducks. We do have black ducks in North Carolina. I've seen them. I don't expect to see any there tomorrow, and even if I did, I can't shoot them. They don't come in season for us until November 17th, I think. But while it's a non-zero chance of seeing a black duck, it's a very low chance. I do not expect to see any black ducks tomorrow. But this dark body really pops. It really does show up well, and is very visible from the air. I haven't seen aerial footage of my spread, but I've seen it of other ones, and those black ducks look really good. It's probably why people use coot decoys. I don't think ducks fly over and go, oh, there's coots down there, it's safe, I'm going to go down there with the coots. No, they just see a black body and go for it. If you've ever hunted places like Reelfoot Lake in western Tennessee, they have these things called filler killers. This outfit that I went with did. And they're putting out 900 decoys, so what are these things, $100 for half a dozen or something like that? You're not going to throw those out, and they're basically a black jug. Fairleigh, Tennessee outlawed just painting a jug black, so they have to buy these filler killers, but they don't look like a duck. They look like a black jug, and they just fill out the spread. So, kind of same concept here. I'm not trying to attract black ducks. I'm just trying to be visible. I'm not taking any more than half a dozen. Honestly, I probably 6 would be more than enough, I bet you. I'll go get some other stuff that I'm going to add to my spread to try to get some motion. But there's probably no need to take this many, but I'm going to be running some traffic a little bit. Ducks are coming in to the spot, but they're also going to be flying up down the creek and going to other spots. So I just want to give some visibility, maybe just draw them my way. But I wouldn't go more than a dozen in a small spot like this. It would look out of place. I don't think ducks are terribly smart, but I think they have a pretty good eye for things that don't look natural. And that 2-3 dozen ducks in this, very small hole wouldn't look natural. So let me step away and go show you some more of what I've got with my spread. Motion decoys. So I started picking these up. This is maybe the 4th season for some of these guys. And it is what I refer to, and always hates when I say this, the butt squirter. It's a bilge pump in there. This is the Higdon Outdoors, based in my home state of Kentucky, which I think is pretty cool. But the butt squirter, I can't remember the name of it. Something XS, not the swimmer. I can't remember what they're called. The Higdon thing that squirts like this. But I'm sure you guys are familiar with these. They're rechargeable. They seem to hold the charge very long. I haven't charged this since last season. I wonder if it's been sitting under my house all summer since, and it's still running. So I think the batteries are pretty good. Run time on these guys, several hours. I have not had them run down during a hunt. Now I don't hunt all day, but multiple hours if it's fully charged. Runs on these. I think also, I know this guy, which we'll talk about in a second, has a slot for a second battery that goes in parallel, which will double your run time. So I think this one does too, but I'm not 100% positive on that. It does come apart. There are clips here where you can take the motor off. A couple years ago, we had a really warm season, and there was, that green snot moss growing that got sucked up in here. I was able to take it apart, take it over the sink, and clean it out. So it came apart pretty well. They come with this little clear hose. Well, not this one. A little piece of clear hose that's got an angle. I find that it squirts better. It gives off more spray and a little bit more action than taking it out. I lost a couple of them, so this is just some hose I found at Home Depot that I crammed in there and cut at an angle. But I think it does work better with that little insert in there, spraying it on there. And these spray, it's on a random pattern. When it sprays, it kicks it down, causes a commotion. Again, I don't think ducks look down and say, oh, look at that duck tipped up down there eating food. They just see motion. Puts a little ripple on the water, makes the decoys that are close to it move around, and it just gives you a little motion, right? A little more natural. Ducks don't ever sit still. So having some motion there helps them out with that. For a guy starting out on a budget, these are not cheap in my book. What are these, 150 bucks each? I would get one of these, especially if you're hunting in small spaces. I would get one of these over, say, another dozen decoys. I would feel better going out with 6 decoys and one of these than I would a dozen and a half, 18 decoys. I really would. Motion. Honestly, I'd probably go out with one of these over just 18 decoys. Put some motion in the water. I was hunting a little hole a couple years ago, and I just went out mid-morning. Just was bored looking for something to do. Did not expect to see a duck. And I had some mallards, a pair of mallards worked me hard. Come into the call, these ducks wanted in, but I had just thrown a couple of decoys out. I had no motion. They locked up on me several times, but always pulled out just at the last minute. I bet if I'd have had one of these, I'd have shot those ducks. So I believe in these. I think the motion helps. And it's worth the cost. They've held up well. I have 3. This will be their 4th season, I think. I did hunt with a guide in Arkansas last year, and his opinion was they're all crap. But he hunts every day of the season in Arkansas. I watched the guy. He took care of his stuff. He wasn't abusing his stuff. Definitely treats it nicer than I do. But so far, for just an average guy that hunts, 15, 20 times a season, maybe if I can get it in, they've worked fine for me. So the next thing is again a Higdon product, and again I'm drawing the blank on the name. But as you can see, this is more of a duck. It squirts water also, but in addition to that, need the old man glasses, you can put in wings. Obviously you're going to want, so it's a spinner basically. It's a spinning wing decoy. Let's see if it has held a charge. Those just have a little spring-loaded thing, flat spot on there. They pop right in pretty easily. Water squirts up out of here. You can adjust these flaps to squirt it up more on the wings. If it's below freezing, if I wouldn't do that, I'd probably put them down so it squirts more out. But little on-off switch on the front here. Those guys spin. Random. It's not continuous. A little randomness there. As these spin, water is shooting out of there, causing a spray. Light reflects off of it if it's sunny, and goes pretty good. You can get a remote for this that gives you 4 different patterns, and you can turn it off and on. I put it on there. I used it once and took it off. Temperature wasn't below freezing, but it seemed like it didn't like the cold. It stopped working. I couldn't get it to do anything. So I was pretty upset with that. Maybe I'll try it again, because it would be neat to turn it off and on, but I'll leave it alone for now. I like to stick this guy. I don't put out a bunch of spinners. I like to stick this guy maybe kind of off to the side, some kind of cover between it and where I think the ducks are going to swing around, so it's not right in front of them. I'm certainly not going to stick this where I want the ducks to land. I have seen ducks try to come in over some of these things, particularly some of it was one that was kind of had two spinners on a big rotating arm, and they kept pulling up every time they got right to it. So I don't necessarily, some guys say they're terrible and they flush ducks or flare ducks. There are no 100% certainties in duck hunting, as you all know, I'm sure. So I put this off to the side somewhere and just let it catch their eye as they swing by, and then maybe not be in their line of sight as they're coming into land. So again, hasn't been charged since last season. It still has some batteries. I am going to charge all these guys though. I will say, so the body, I'm not going to do it because it's kind of a pain. The body slips down into the base and then turns like just an eighth of a turn, not even, and it just kind of locks in like a Zeus fastener would, or kind of with a little cam lock, not cam lock, but it just kind of a little rotation and locks it in place. The base that's in this part that it locks into broke. The first one, it broke. But Higdon carries them. It was in stock. They were $5, I think. I bought two. I think I bought something else at the same time, like a connector or something. I don't know. I put that in there. I bought an extra one, and so far so good. We'll see how it goes this season. So how do I like to set these out? I like to set them near my other decoys. These off so I don't break them. I'm starting to separate. Anyway, I like to set the squirters, the motion decoys, near my other decoys. They do need several inches of water, as you can imagine. I can't set this right down in a patch of grass or something like that, so it needs some opening around it. But then if I can set some other decoys this close, right there, so that they're getting a little wobble from the ripples this creates, I think that adds a lot to the spread. So that's my motion decoy setup, and I also splurged for the really nice little DU branded official licensed product motion decoy carrier. I thought this was Higdon too, but I don't see their name on it. Oh, it is Higdon, yeah. Just because it's easier to stick them in there than throw them in the bottom of a sled, right? I should have called out my Texas rigs before. I use, they're either the Bass Pro Shops or the Cabelas branded pre-rigged Texas rigs. They are cheap. They're like $15 a dozen. Some of them have broken, but for $15 a dozen, I went last year and or the year before, whenever, and bought like 6 packages of them. So I've always got extra on hand. What happened, I think, with those is this pulled out the weight. There's a little crimp on here. I've had those come off, but get a package of like 20 of these crimps that makes the loop. And if one of them comes off, you just recrimp it. It's not that big. You just get a new one in there and it recrimps it. But they've been good. They're inexpensive. I did see, again with that same guide I mentioned with his comment on the squirting decoys, he uses those plastic coated cables, and they were nice. I will say that they were nice. They didn't kink, and it looked like he had them color coded, like he had groups of decoys that he always put together. Like I keep these decoys, like you saw earlier, 6 woodies, some mallards, and some black ducks for where I'm going. If I was going to a place where it wasn't predominantly woodies, I would switch it up. But I keep them like that because I just pick up a bag and I go. But it looked like he was doing the same thing with that color-coded cable or plastic-coated cable, because the blue ones went together and the yellow ones went together and the orange ones went together. I thought that was pretty cool. But that's a lot more expensive, and if you're walking in, it's heavier. The reason I got the 3-foot ones is because the weight's a little lighter, right? If you've got to walk half a mile to your spot, weight matters, especially for me. But that's my thought on those inexpensive Bass Pro Shop brand Texas rigs, pre-made. It even comes with a carabiner, I think. has worked really well. I will say get extra carabiners. I'm looking around for the one that I took off these decoys earlier. Let me pull this one out here. This is, again, Cabelas Northern Flight brand. I don't remember what they cost, but they weren't expensive. And I think they come in a package of more than one for very little dollars when you consider everything. I like to put 6 on a carabiner. I find 12, especially if you're trying to put them into a decoy bag or something like that, is a little ungainly. So I just reach in here, grab them, pull 6 up out of the bag, and I go do it. It just seems to be a little bit more convenient, especially considering the inexpensiveness of these. And they got a nice little foam pad on there, which, yay, whatever. But that's my thought on decoys. You guys just getting started. If there's any new guys out there, you don't have to spend $1,000 on decoys. I've been with, like I said, the Real Foot, where they put out 900 decoys. And I've been in situations where I'll put out a bunch. I've got, all total, puddlers, divers. I've got mallards, gadwalls, widgeon, pintails, teal, woodies, canvasbacks, and ringnecks. We actually do get quite a few ringnecks on some of the lakes around here. And then like 4 Canada Goose decoys. Oh, black ducks. I forgot black ducks. But honestly, I would, if I didn't have any gear and I needed decoys, I would go get 6 cheap mallard decoys. Pretty much everything will decoy to a mallard. I mean, you know, maybe if we could do a scientific test, we could find some specifics there where decoy, birds of a feather flock together kind of thing. But pretty much everything will decoy to a mallard. Certainly gadwalls will. And, you know, I don't know, debates out on whether woodies really decoy or not. I would get 6, you know, of the cheap mallard decoys, throw those out with these cheap Bass Pro Shop Texas rigs, and call it good. Build over time. Don't think that to get started in duck hunting, you gotta invest with tons of the most expensive stuff available. You don't. Right? Duck hunting is expensive enough as it is. Don't make it worse on yourself by feeling like you need to load up with tons and tons of gear. Acquire it over time, but start cheap. Start cheap. It's already too expensive to start with. All right, so that's my take on decoys. I'll admit I'm probably overkill for what I'm doing this weekend, but I don't think it's going to hurt me, and it'll make me feel good. So that's it for decoys. I'm going to move on to some other stuff, and maybe talk a little bit about my gear bag as well. All right, thanks for watching.